What is a noun? Do you know? Here's a second conditional question for you. If I weren't an English teacher, would I be able to answer that question? Maybe not. So let's talk about nouns. Yay! Thank you, Tanya. Because I'll tell you something. First, that nouns are treated differently in different languages. So, for example, in Spanish, nouns are gendered, and in English, they're not. So, you know, in that sense, and in many others, English grammar is much simpler than many other languages' grammars. So, that's the good news. But of course, there's also the fact that nouns in all languages can get complicated. So let's start with the very basics. Let's talk about what you absolutely need to know about nouns in English and how they're treated in English. And then we can take it up a notch, as we say, and move step by step into more complex noun structures. Okay, so if you're ready, let's get started. Here we go. Nouns are words we use for things, and that includes people too. We don't normally refer to people as things, but when talking about nouns, then people are nouns also. So if I say flower, flower is a noun, mountain is a noun, lake, yes, Tanya is a noun, Tony, friends. All of these are words that refer to concrete things, things that we can see and touch. But nouns can also refer to abstract things like air and idea, government, things that we can't necessarily see or touch, but that refer to things. And so those are nouns too. So here's the first division. We have concrete nouns and abstract nouns. The next thing we need to know in English is that nouns are countable. That means that we have countable nouns and uncountable nouns. So if you go to a dictionary, then the first symbol that will appear after a noun is its countability. It will appear as either countable or uncountable or both. But don't worry about that right now. Anyway, most nouns are countable or uncountable. So I can have one flower or two or more flowers. There can be one mountain, two or more mountains. But when we talk about air, we don't say one or more airs. When we talk about money, we don't say one or more monies. Well, actually, technically we can, but let's just say that, you know, because we're starting simple here, that air and money are uncountable, whereas flower and mountain are countable. And if you're thinking, wait, I mean, I do count my money, then yes, you count your money, but you count it in the currency of your country. So you count pesos, you count dollars, pounds, euros, but you don't I keep stalling on this counting money thing, because we do say, oh, you know, count money, but money I could have chosen an easier noun, an easier uncountable noun, like sand or milk or sugar. Those are uncountable too. We don't say sugars, we don't say milks, although we can. But generally speaking, okay. So concrete or abstract, countable or uncountable. Those are two very important characteristics of nouns in English. The final thing to know, which is an absolute must when it comes to understanding nouns, is that we can put a noun together with other words and create noun phrases. Okay, so we'll talk about that too. Hello, or hello again, and welcome to the channel. It's a sunny, clear, beautiful 22 degrees Celsius or centigrade. That's degrees. And this is Tanya Meyer, founder of Confident English Training, operating at the intersection between efficient acquisition and use of English, the practice of awareness raising, and increased levels of happiness and well-being. What's not to love? To summarize up to now, nouns are words we use for things, and they can be concrete or abstract. They can be mostly countable or uncountable, and we can put nouns together with other words to create noun phrases. So now let's look at each of these characteristics in turn, because if you understand these characteristics and you notice more carefully, then you can really revolutionize the way you use English yourself. So the question of abstract or concrete is straightforward. And by abstract, we mean things like culture and love, time, beauty, and even thought. Now, that's an interesting one, isn't it? Because we tend to think of thoughts as ethereal and having no form and no solidity to them. But as a noun, and we say that nouns are things, then thoughts are things. And between one thought and another is a gap or a space. Space and gap are also nouns, and paying as much attention to the space, the gap between thoughts is very important for our mental health. We tend to get caught in our thoughts and to think that we are our thoughts, and so what we think, and we're thinking all day. But if we suddenly notice that I'm not thinking right now, that there's a space or a gap between this thought and the next, then we ourselves become lighter because we're not so heavy with thoughts. So the space between thoughts is as important as the space between one star and another, between galaxies, which are also nouns. Or even if we go micro, the space between the cells in our body, or between the nucleus and the electrons of an atom. All of those require space, and paying attention to it, cultivating and appreciating space can bring great freedom to our lives. I'll leave a playlist here for all my mindful English learning videos, which can really bring true confidence and fluency to your English. The definite article the provides specificity to nouns, but it does so in different ways from other languages, and there are many rules involved. And I would need to film another video just on the definite article the. So if this is something that you want to learn more about, at least the basics of how we use the definite article the in English, then again, drop me a comment. Yes, definite article the, and I'll do my best to oblige. Your wish is my command. That is one of the very common English sayings that we use, and that I didn't include in my recent video on common English sayings, which looks like this, and I'll leave a link for down below. Countable nouns can be either singular or plural. One flower, two or more flowers. One mountain, two or more mountains. one lake, two or more lakes, one person, two or more people. This is an example of an irregular noun plural. One person, two or more people. To pluralize a noun, we add s or es to the end of the word. For the pronunciation of words that end in s or es, I have another video right here that you can watch later. I'll leave a link for it in the description box below. Now, singular countable nouns are the only ones we use the indefinite article a or un with, because a or un means one. So we say a flower, a mountain, a cloud, a lake, a person. With uncountable nouns, because they are uncountable, so they don't exist in the singular or plural forms technically, then we don't use the indefinite article a or un. So we wouldn't say something like a money. As I was saying before, we might pluralize money, and in some contexts we can say monies, but we would not say a money. And that's how we know that money is uncountable. We wouldn't say a nair or a sugar or a sand, a freedom, a knowledge. See, here we're using abstract, uncountable nouns. The point is that we do not use the indefinite article a or un with uncountable nouns. With uncountable nouns that finish in s or s, there is no singular form, and so we would not use the indefinite article a or un with them either. A typical example is the word news. Many English learners say, oh, I have a news for you. But no, we don't say a, we don't use the indefinite article a with uncountable nouns, including news, which is one of these plural uncountable nouns because it finishes with an s. And other examples include groceries and arms and clothes, customs and regards. We would not singularize any of these nouns. They don't exist in the singular form. If we want to talk about a singular item of one of these, then we would say, for example, a piece of news or an item of clothing. We cannot talk about a good. We talk about goods, products, but we cannot talk about a good. We cannot talk about an arm. Well, we can. This is an arm, but when it comes to like weapons, we wouldn't say an arm. We talk about arms. The third aspect of nouns that we'll be looking at today is that sometimes we can put nouns together with other words, and these are called compound nouns or noun phrases. Noun phrases are based around a head noun. So, for example, in the compound noun or noun phrase visual learners, then the head noun is learners. And what we need to know here is that a whole noun phrase can be substituted by a pronoun, either it or they, depending on whether we're talking about a singular or plural unit of meaning. So, for example, in the noun phrase, the earliest known book, then the head noun is book, and it can be replaced with the pronoun it. Noun phrases can be short, consisting of 2 or 3 words, or very long as 20 or more words. And of course, the longer the noun phrase, then the more complex and dense in information. Nouns are commonly used with determiners, and articles are a kind of determiner, or without determiners. So, for example, if I say I, then I am a noun and I'm not using a determiner. But if I say some students, then some is a quantifier, which is also a kind of determiner. Or another person, then another is another kind of determiner for person. So let's look now at 4 of the most common patterns that make up noun phrases. The first one is when we have adjective plus noun. So in English, adjectives come first and the noun later, which isn't the case in Spanish and in Portuguese and other Romance languages, where the noun goes first and the adjective later. But what happens in English, if we're talking about a singular noun, so we might use a and then an adjective or more than one adjective to refer to the noun, and then the article that refers to the noun is very far away from the noun, so it might get lost. If I say, for example, a beautiful, clear, sunny day, then a refers to day, and beautiful, clear, and sunny are adjectives that refer to day, but the article seems to refer to sunny, but it doesn't. It refers to day. We can also use a comparative form to refer to the noun. So in the phrase, some of the most influential research, then some is our determiner. Of the most influential is a superlative form, and research is the noun, the head noun. So some of the most influential research is a noun phrase consisting of adjective plus noun. The second pattern, the second common pattern, is to use noun plus noun, and it can be nouns plus noun. For example, voice recorder, learner independence or learner autonomy, intelligence quotient, and even community development process. So here we have 3 nouns. And all of the nouns add information to the head noun. So community development process is the process of development of a community. Next, we have noun plus prepositional phrases. You remember prepositions, right? In, on, at. Yes. So we have noun plus prepositional phrases. For example, some of the most influential research on culture. Research on culture. The energy and nutrients in their food. In their food. Nutrients in something. Or they met at a party. They met at the park. The prepositional phrase adds information to the sentence or idea, and it's one of the most common types of noun phrase. The final pattern that we'll be looking at today is noun plus relative clause. There are more patterns, by the way, but for the purposes of this video, we're only going to be focusing on these 4. So this final one is noun plus relative clause. I do have another video all about relative clauses. Here it is. I'll also leave a link down in the description box for you to learn more about them. But in the phrase, for example, individuals who take time before giving a reply, our head noun is individuals. And this is something to note also, that the head noun doesn't necessarily need to be at the end of the noun phrase. It can be at the beginning, as in this case, individuals who take time to give a reply. Who take time to give a reply is a defining relative clause. It's telling us what individuals we are referring to. And the noun phrase can also use non-defining relative clauses. For example, if I say herbivores, which are species that feed directly on plants, are a major part of the food web. And here, which are species that feed directly on plants, is a non-defining relative clause that is part of the noun phrase because it's explaining the head noun, which is herbivores. Alrighty, I hope you liked this video and that you found it helpful. If you did, give me a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and invite the bell to be notified every time I upload a new video. Remember that you can find out more about my ongoing English training program for professionals at intermediate level and above looking to become more confident and fluent in English. You'll find a link for that down in the description box below. You can also click on this QR code right here if you're ready to set up a call and take action. And you can also download a copy of my free guide with audio, How to Revolutionize Your English. I'll leave that in the description box below. And I'll see you in the next one. Take very good care until then. Bye for now.